Good day, everyone. I'm Teacher Jada together with other assigned teachers in Row 2, and we will discuss about the methods of teaching language, which are grammar translation, direct method, audiolingual method, total physical response, community language learning, silent way, language experience method. But before that, we will have our motivation. We prepare jumbled letters, and you will guess what is the right word. First jumbled letter. Silent way. Very good. Second, direct method. Very good. And last, audiolingual method. Very good. And now, let's read our objectives in our lesson for today. At the end of the lesson, the student should be able to identify the different methods of teaching language. But before we start to the methods in teaching language, let me introduce to all of you the meaning of teaching method. It is the broader techniques used to help students achieve learning outcomes, while activities are the different ways of implementing these methods. Teaching methods help students master the content of the course, learn how to apply the content in particular contexts.
Grammar translation method. Translating word with your use language into English to differentiate its meaning and usage. So this grammar translation method are not translating sentence by sentence, but instead it's translated by word to word. Grammar translation method. It was designed according to the faculty psychology approach, which was very popular during the 18th and 19th century. It was contended that mental discipline was essential for strengthen and empower the mind. So that grammar translation method is very popular during the 18th and 19th century because of the contended that mental discipline was essential for strengthening the power the mind. So here are one of the example you can use in classroom setting. You can ask the student to take down their friend conversation in their native language and then translate it into English. So with that student can identify or indefinitely say the word based on language they use. Here are the main features. First bullet. It focuses on reading and writing. Second, uses vocabulary words. Third, develops student reading ability to a level where they can read literature in the target language. And last, develops student general mental discipline. Here the strength of grammar translation method. Number one, help teacher match to clear the meaning of a word and sentence of the student easily. Number two, student understand the things very easily. If taught using this method, students learn easily. And here the weaknesses of grammar translation method. Number one, the main focus remains only on the mother tongue and the target language remains ignored. Number two, the student don't develop the power of thinking in the target language. The oral work takes place in the classroom due to this method. Negative effects of pupils' motivation. First bullet, they fail to learn the difficult grammar rules of the target language. There is no interaction between the student and teacher. Cannot master all the four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Here the main purpose of grammar translation method: to learn a language in order to read its literature, to benefit from mental discipline and intellectual improvement.
Direct method. What is direct method? It is a new word or expression that is connected in the people's mind directly with what it stands for and not through the medium of vernacular. It is also known as the natural method. Why? It is because it looks to the process of first language acquisition to save the context and techniques for the second language acquisition. When we learn our mother tongue, we didn't go through to the grammar lessons and transitions to use. The direct method focuses on full immersion in the classroom environment where not one word of the student's native language is spoken. So the focus here is not on the grammar, but instead of learning through listening and speaking. Here are the main features of direct method. First, oral work. In oral work piece is very important. The direct method lays stress on the oral aspects of English. The child about first lesson and then speaks. This will develop a language sense among the children. Oral teaching will also form the basis of reading and writing. Second, minimum use of the mother tongue. Make as let the use of mother tongue as possible. The sound of the mother tongue should not interfere with English sounds. This will ensure the direct fun between experience and expressions, between words and meaning. Use mother tongue only when it's most essential to use. Third, the sentence and not the word becomes the unit of speech. The direct methods follows the principles that the unit of speech should be sentence and not the word we don't unthink a sentence or a sense group. We do not think in a single word, so sentence is me. The unit of speech. Fourth, the teaching of descriptive grammar. Grammar is not at all of state of grammar. The direct method aims at teaching the grammar of language or the grammar that describes the language in actions. The grammar taught is not grammar rules, but grammar of rules. Grammar is taught indirectly. The last principles, which is progressive teaching of vocabulary. The direct method stresses the need of using only limited words and phrases. The words and phrases are taught of definite stage through spoken language. Thus, teaching of vocabulary is progressive. Here is an example. Cash receipts are often listed from customers, commissions, and tenants. Cash payments are usually broken out into several categories like payments for inventory, payroll, interest, rent, and taxes. A direct method actually lists the major cash receipts and payments on the statement cash flows. Categorizing these inflows and outflows can be time-consuming things. They are not categorized like this on any other financial. These are the strengths of the direct method. First, the learner receives more information in the target language than when the language is disrupted underneath the language. The next is the learner creates the direct associations between words in the foreign language and concepts and in their mind. Action situations instead of indirect connections by words in their native language. This can be important when words in a target language are difficult to map to words in a native class. There are also weaknesses of the direct method. First, the small class size made the direct method unsuitable for the public education. This method may not hold well in higher classes where translation method is found suitable. And the last is some concepts are difficult to explain without recourse to the learner's native language. However, if an occasional translation is allowed, this not be a disadvantage of a direct method. The main purpose of the direct method is focuses on full immersion in the class environment where not one word of the student's native language is spoken. So, when there is a big distance between the learner's native language and the target language, certain aspects are difficult to explain without using the learner's native language. This is especially the case of the grammar and certain communicative and cultural subjects. At the early ages, the learner simply lacks the vocabulary to understand these aspects when they are explained in their foreign language.
Let us now move on to the audiolingual method. What is audiolingual method? It is based on behavioristic theory that advocates conditioning and habit formation models of learning that we perfectly in keeping with mimicry, drills, and patterns practices of audiolingual method. Audiolingual method or ALM advise that students should be taught a language directly without using the student's native language to explain new words or grammar in the target language. In addition, audiolingual method is a method of foreign language teaching which emphasizes the teaching of listening and speaking before reading and writing. It used dialogue as the main form of language, presentation, and reels as the main training techniques. Also, the mother tongue is discouraged in the classroom. However, unlike the direct method, the audiolingual method did not focus on teaching vocabulary, rather it should build students in the use of grammar.
Example pattern used in audiolingual method. 1. Repetition drill. This drill is often used to teach the line of the dialogue. Students are asked to repeat the teacher's model as accurately and as quickly as possible. Example, teacher, the cat is under the table. Student, the cat is under the table. 2. Chain drill. Allows some control communication even though it is limited. Also gives the teacher an opportunity to check each student's speed. A chain drill gets its name from the chain of the conversation that forms around the room as a student one by one asked and answer question of each other. The teacher begins the chain by greeting a particular student or asking him a question of the second student and then chain continues. Example, where is the cat? Student 2, the cat is under the table. Student 2, where is the cat? Student 3, the cat is under the table. 3. Single slot substitution drill. The teacher says a line, usually from the dialogue. Next, the teacher say a word or a piece called the cue. The student repeat the line the teacher has given them, substituting the cue into the line in its proper place. Example, teacher, the cat is under the table. Student, the cat is under the table. Teacher, chair. Student, the cat is under the chair. Teacher, dog. The dog is under the chair.
Let us now move on to the main features of audiolingual method. First, it enables the students to learn how to use English in every oral communication. Second, it encourages the students to produce utterances with accurate pronunciation and grammar, and to grow the students' ability to respond quickly and accurately in speech situations like the native speakers. The audiolingual method has also strengths and weaknesses. Let's start first with strength. First, medium-sized classes can be used. Second, practice of listening and speaking. Third, it can be used at elementary and intermediate levels. Fourth, learners can form grammatically accurate language.
Weaknesses. Number 1. Fluent and confident teachers needed. Number 2. Repetition can be very boring and meaningless. Number 3. Little exposure to spontaneous and authentic speech. Number 4. Reading and writing are neglected and not treated as independent form. Main purpose of audiolingual method. Learning grammatical and phonological structure, especially for speaking and listening.
Total Physical Response, or TPR, is a language teaching method developed by James Asher in the year 1960s. TPR is grounded in the trace theory of learning, which suggests that memory is enhanced when associated with physical movement or action. The method is primarily focused on the acquisition of the second language and is often used in the early stages of language teaching. How TPR works. Number 1. Listening and acting. TPR involves a strong connection between listening and physical action. The teacher gives command in the target language and students respond by carrying out the actions associated with those commands. Number 2. Teacher as director, student as actors. The teacher takes on the role of director providing commands while the students become the actors who respond to those commands through physical movements. Number 3. Negative points. While TPR can be effective for certain learners, it may be not suitable for everyone. Some students may be uncomfortable or self-conscious with the physicality involved, and it may not be applicable in more advanced language learning stages when more complex language skills are needed. Theatrical and dramatic appeal. TPR has a theatrical and dramatical appeal to language learning by incorporating physical action and movements. It engages learner in multisensory experience, making language learning more interactive and memorable. Example commands: stand up, sit down, and move backward. Main features of TPR. Number 1. Teacher directs, students acts. The teacher gives commands and students respond with physical action. Number 2. Comprehension through body movement. Understanding and comprehension are developed through associating language with physical movement. Number 3. Listening period. TPR includes a listening period during which learners become accustomed to the language before actively speaking. Learner as listener and performer. Students are both listener and performer, actively engaging with the language through action. Number 6. Spoken language emphasize. The TPR places a greater emphasis on spoken language skills rather than written language skills. In summary, TPR is a language teaching method that leverages the connection between physical movement and language learning to enhance comprehension and memory. It is particularly effective in the early stages of language acquisition and is known for its interactive and engaging nature. Strengths of total physical response. Number 1. Help students immediately understand the target language. TPR allows students to associate language with physical actions, aiding immediate comprehension. This connection between words and action helps learners grasp the meaning of vocabulary and commands effortlessly. Number 2. Does not require a great deal of preparation. TPR is relatively simple to implement, requiring minimal preparation compared to some other teaching methods. Teachers can easily create commands on the spot, making it a convenient approach for spontaneously language practice. Number 3. Fun, easy, and memorable. TPR is designed to be entertaining and enjoyable for learners. The incorporation of physical movements make the learner's process fun, easy to remember, and engaging for students, contributing to a positive classroom experience. Number 4. Helps learner achieve fluency in learning language. Through the combination of listening, comprehension, and physical response, TPR aims to develop a foundation for language fluency. The method focuses on making language learning dynamic and interactive process, potentially enhancing overall fluency. Number 5. A good tool for building vocabulary. TPR is particularly effective for vocabulary building. The method emphasis on associating words with action can enhance the memorization and retention of new vocabulary, laying a solid foundation for language acquisition. And number 6, facilitate students with meaning in real context. TPCAR allows students to experience language in real-life context through physical action. This real-world connection can deepen understanding and help learners apply language skills in practical situations. Weaknesses of total physical response. Number 1. Could be a challenge for shy students. The physical nature of TPR might be pose challenges for shy or self-conscious students who may feel uncomfortable performing action in front of their peers. They could hinder their participation and engagement. Number 2. Could be boring in class. While TPR is designed to be entertaining, it may become monotonous if overused or if not adapted to suit the interests and preferences of the students. This could lead to disengage and perceived lack of excitement in the classroom. Number 3. Limited and not convenient method. TPR is primarily suited for certain aspects of language learning, particularly in the early stages. Its effectiveness diminishes when teaching more complex language structures or advanced language skills. This limitation may require supplementary teaching methods. Number 4. Not flexible enough to teach everything. TPR is effective for vocabulary and comprehension but may not be suitable for teaching all aspects of learning, such as complex grammatical rules or abstract concepts. It may it it may need to be complemented with other instructional approaches. Number 4. Not flexible enough to teach everything. TPR is most effective for vocabulary and comprehension, but may not be suitable for teaching all aspects of language, such as complex grammatical rules or abstract concepts. It may be complemented with other instructional approaches. Number 5. Target language not suited to this method. Some language may be less conducive to TPR, especially it may be heavily on abstract concepts or notions that are challenging to represent through physical actions. This method applicably can vary depending on characteristics of the target. Number 6. Not a very creative method. While TPR is interactive, it may not provide as such much room for creatively in language expression compared to other methods. This could limit students in developing more nuanced and imaginative language skills. The main purpose of TPR is to enhance language learning by creating a strong psychomotor association between linguistic elements and corresponding physical actions, leveraging the mind-body connections to improve comprehension, retention, and overall language acquisition.
So, community language learning method is developed by Charles A. Curran. So, it is also known as counseling learning. So, uh, the word counseling, it means the person who is giving advice to a person who has a problem. Community language learning method is also a good method to practice listening and speaking skills. So, it is defined the role of the teacher and the learner. So, teacher as a counselor and the learner as a client. It is also a humanistic approach to teaching and learning that stresses the role of human values and knowledge of the learner's sentiments and emotions. It is also dependency and independency relationship. There are two kinds of community learning language interaction. So, first is interaction between the learners. So, it is the learners become intimate as they become a community of learners, and the desire to be part of this growing intimacy that pushes learners to keep pace with the learning of their peers. So next is interaction between the learners and the knowers. So the learner will going to tell to the knowers what she is wishes to say in the target language, and the knower will going to help the learner to say it, or the knower will going to teach the learner how to say it in the target language. There are different example of learning activities. So first is translation. So a student speak out of his or her mother tongue. So and the teacher will going to translate it into the target language. For example, I am a Kapampangan. I will going to say dakala salamat, and the teacher will going to translate it into for example, the target language is English, so she or he will going to say, thank you so much. Next is tape recording. So students speak out in their mother tongue. So the teacher will going to translate the language chunks into their target language. But only the target language production are being recorded.
Another example of learning activities. Number 3, reflection on experience activity. Teachers take time to carry out various activities. Students allowed to express their feelings in the activity. Teachers indicates understanding or empathy. Simply because in reflection on experience activities, students will be allowed to express themselves, so we as educators will understand and know them more. Number 4, group work. Tasks like discussion of a topic, preparing a conversation are given. Students work in a small groups to complete a task. Present it to rest of the class. So group work can be so beneficial to students because they learn more in a collaborative way. So they can interact with their classmates and build their confidence in front of the class. There are strengths. Number 1, works well with lower levels of students who are struggling in spoken English. Number 2, creates warm, sympathetic, and trusting relationship between teachers and learners. Number 3, trains students to become independent and lower students' anxiety and overcome threatening affective filter. Number 4, counselor allow the learners to determine what type of conversation. But there are also weaknesses, and number 1, some learners find it difficult to speak on tapes. It is time consuming to carry out. Number 3, in order students to become independent, teacher might neglect the need for guidance. Number 4, teacher has to be highly proficient in the target language and in the language of the student. To sum up, the main purpose or the goal of community language learning method is to develop both the language skills and the emotional and social skills of learners.
Good day everyone, I am Teacher Axel and this is Silent Way method. What is Silent Way? Silent Way is a method of language teaching devised by Caleb Categno. Categno views language itself as a substitute for experience. So experience is what gives meaning to language. It is based on the premise that the teacher should be silent as much as possible in the classroom. The learner should be encouraged to produce as much language as possible. The teacher roles are: teachers acts as a facilitator. Second, the teachers acts as a neutral observer. And lastly, according to Stevic, silent way teachers' tasks are teach, to test, and to get out of the way. The students' roles are: the students are expected to develop independence, autonomy, and responsibility. Second, students are expected to participate in the class actively. And lastly, Students are involved in verbal interaction and peer correction activities. The silent way is characterized by its focus on discovery, creativity, problem solving, and the use of accompanying materials. The major features of silent way are learner discovers or creates rather than remember and repeats what is to be learned. Learners is facilitated by accompanying physical objects. And lastly, learning is facilitated by problem solving involving the materials to be learned. Methods using teaching silent way. What is the methods using teaching silent way? First, sound color chart. Each color chart represents a cognitive language or any second language. Second, culinary rods. It is demonstrate most grammatical structure such as dances, verbs, and prepositions. And lastly, Fidel chart. How is the silent way applied? Here is an example. Small color rods are used to introduce vocabulary, colors, numbers, adjectives, verbs, and syntax. Example of this is tense, comparatives, pluralization, and word order. The teacher provides single word stimuli or short phrases and sentences once or twice, and then the students refine their understanding and pronunciation among themselves with corrective feedback from teachers. The charts introduce the pronunciation model and paradigms. Strengths of Silent Way Method. This method fosters cooperative learning between individuals. Second, it embodies a new approach to education in general, a respect for individual and an awareness of the individual's extraordinary cognitive powers. The weaknesses of Silent Way method is for some teachers, the rigidity of the system may be meaningless. And second, learners had to understand. And lastly, the main purpose of Silent Way method. The main purpose of this is to emphasize learner autonomy and active student participation.
And for the last, the language experience method. Language experience approach is a whole language approach that promotes reading and writing through the use of personal experiences and oral language. The language experience approach integrates speaking and listening, reading, and writing through the development of a written text based on first and experiences. Next, the principles. When children's language and experience are accepted as a starting point for literacy, learning to read and write is easy. When this is not the case, learning to read and write can be difficult. Language experience exploits the two major resources children possess, their language and experience. It is one of the most efficient ways to initiate reading and writing. Main features of language experience method. All communication skills, reading and writing, listening and speaking are integrated. Difficulty of vocabulary and grammar are determined by the learner's own language use. Learning and teaching are personalized, communicative, and creative. Following activities to be done in the classroom. First, sharing experiences and discussion about the story person's life through objects and images. Second, role play is a fun-filled activity. Students are made into separate teams. Each group will introduce a dramatic event or conversation based the book. And the advantages of these are an increase in students' knowledge and skill, statistically higher outcomes in application of coursework to everyday life than comparable students not engaged in experimental learning. Statistically significant increases in ability to analyze increasingly complex problems. Significant increases in students' critical thinking abilities. Of course, there's an disadvantages of it. A decentralized approach can seem less orderly and may be less comfortable to an authoritarian style teacher. It requires more preparation by the teacher or leader and may require more time for processing. Playing active role in the learning process can lead to students experiencing greater gratification in learning. The choice of teaching methods can significantly impact language learning outcomes by selecting and employing appropriate methods. Language instructor can create effective and engaging learning environments, cater to diverse learner needs, promote language acquisition, and facilitate the development of language skills.